This lesson is all about what we call seasonal indices. So clearly we're going to be dealing with seasonal data. Our learning intention, therefore, is the following. Can you calculate seasonal indices once you know what they are? Can you deseasonalize data that you've got? Graph that deseasonalized data, and then another skill will be to reseasonalize the data afterwards. By the way, what I'm doing here is in quite a different order from the textbook, because in my mind the textbook delivers the information back to front. While you have both resources to use, I hope what I'm doing here will help. Now we're dealing with some quarterly seasonal data here. 4 seasons. It's 1 year or less is seasonal data. In this case we have what we call seasons. If the data was monthly, we would have 12 so-called seasons. Anyway, we've got 3 years worth of data. Just by looking at the numbers only, can you tell how the business is doing? And I hope that you'll say, well, it's difficult, the numbers don't tell you very much. You could graph the data, which gives a slightly clearer picture. The blue dots. I've also drawn on there a black line, which is where I guess there might be a least squares line. The red lines are the least squares lines for each of the seasons. What we're going to be doing is finding out how to get a good set of numbers to produce a regression line, which, by the way, is those red dots there and the line. That's what we're going to be able to work out, how to get those red numbers, and then we can produce a trend line from the red numbers. It's going to take 4 steps to produce the red line. That's what I'm going to go through now. First step is you find the average for each year. So 2013, that's 4 numbers, add them up, divide by 4, and then do the same for 2014 and 2015, which are the numbers in the box on the right. So that's your first step, and take notes, find the average figure for each year. Second step for your notes, you calculate the individual seasonal index for each data point and put all that into a new table. So for each of the data points, you divide it by its average for the year. So each of the 2013 numbers get divided by 923, each of the 2014 numbers get divided by 1028, and so on. And we'll produce a whole series of numbers which revolve around 1. Some are less than 1, some are more than 1. Okay. Step 3. Then we find the overall, or what we call the average seasonal index for each season. So this time we're going to come down in columns. I've reproduced the table from the previous step there in front of you, the middle table. And what we do is we take each column and add them up and divide by 3, because we've got 3 years worth of data. And that gives us, just 2 decimal places, what we call an overall or average seasonal index for each season. Make sure you can see where those numbers come from, and write down your third step. Find the overall average seasonal index for each season. You're going to finish up with 4 numbers. Last step, we go back to the original data, which is the table on the top left there, and divide each original item by its overall seasonal index and produce a new table with 3 rows and 4 columns. So in year 1, as we're calling it now, summer figure was originally 920. We divide that by 1.03 and get the 893, which goes in the last table. Similarly, going down or across, whichever order you want to do, each number must be divided by its overall seasonal index for that season. And that's your 4 steps. And those 12 numbers bottom right are the deseasonalized data. And that's where they come from. Table reproduced again, and that produces the red dots and the joined up lines. There you go, there is deseasonalized data. If you can remember those 4 steps, write them down and use it each time you approach one of these questions. Good. Some concept facts about seasonal indices. There's a set of monthly data. Seasonal indices have already been calculated. As you can see, they're all above or below 1, and you add them up, they will divide by 12 exactly to produce an average of 1. the sum of the seasonal indices equals the number of seasons. So on our previous table, if we've added up the seasonal indices, they would have come to 4. Didn't do that, but you can. What do these seasonal indices tell you? Well, as we know now, they're all above or below 1, and we can use that information regardless of how else we proceed. A number of 1.03 means that the summer sales are 3% above average. 1.15, 15% above average. And the last one, by the way, 0.52, which is 48% below average. So you can always use that information to start in analysing your purchase figures or your sales figures. Now, we don't need a whole table to do work. We might just be given a table of seasonal indices and some data and asked to calculate a particular deseasonalized sales number. And so anytime you need to do that, just divide the actual figure by the seasonal index. I've put a wry comment on there. We can work out how much we need to increase or decrease the actual sales figures to correct for seasonality. Why anybody would want to decrease sales is beyond me. Business is business. I also mentioned earlier something called reseasonalizing data. You might want to go back from the deseasonalized data to its individual value, or in this case you'll take, to work out what the actual figure originally was, you'd multiply a deseasonalized figure by its seasonal index. So dividing to get to the deseasonalized figure, multiply to get back to the original. Now, I won't give you the help with the exercise questions in this presentation because that's probably enough to be going on with. I'll do a separate presentation how to go through, helping to go through with all these exercises.